James's unexpected visit disrupts the household. When the two sisters woke up, they got ready and went downstairs to the kitchen for breakfast. As they all sat around the table, a loud knock echoed through the house. Eva rose from her chair to answer the door and found James standing before her, asking to speak with Zanina. She asked him to wait while she fetched her sister, but as she re-entered the kitchen, she accidentally mentioned James's name in front of their father. Hawk's curiosity was piqued. "Who is this young man asking for Zanina?" he demanded. Zanina had no time to explain. Sarah, trying to calm him, pleaded, "Please, just stay quiet." But Hawk, growing increasingly agitated, insisted, "I want to know who this James is. I demand to know." "Calm down, Hawk," Sarah interjected. "He's just a friend the girls met at my cousin's party." "Your cousin's party? You don't have any cousins. Enough now. Let me help you take a bath and rest. Stop treating me like a child, you and your daughters. I'll bathe on my own." Sarah was taken aback by his outburst. She wasn't so much afraid for herself as she was for James, who might witness Hawk's state and distress her daughters. Meanwhile, Zanina, anxious, went to meet James. He had expected a warmer welcome and asked, "Zanina, aren't you happy to see me?" "I am," she replied hesitantly, "but I'd be even happier if I knew why you came." James had planned to ease into the conversation with a preamble, but hearing a man's voice shouting inside the house, he instinctively asked, "May I ask who that is?" "That's Leante, my father's friend. He has family troubles and visits us often." "I don't think yelling will solve his problems," James remarked. "But I didn't come here to talk about Leante, came to talk about myself." "About you?" Zanina asked, puzzled. "A military mission has been assigned to me," he explained. "I have to leave this island and relocate to Portsmouth Rock, a nearby island, for a year. I know this may not concern you, but it does concern your mother. I'd like to say goodbye to her." Before Zanina could respond, Eva suddenly appeared and interrupted. "She can't talk to you right now." "It's all right," James said. "Please pass along my regards to her." Clearly frustrated, James lingered for a moment, hoping the tense atmosphere would shift. But sensing he was unwelcome, he finally bid them farewell, puzzled. Back inside, Eva returned to the kitchen to help Sarah keep Hawk calm, while Zanina stood dazed by the window, watching James ride away into the unknown. She didn't know whether to be relieved that Eva had spared her from an awkward conversation, or saddened that she hadn't been able to speak with him longer. One thing she did realize, however, was that in just a few minutes her heart had shattered into pieces. Yet, for the sake of her family, she would try to piece it back together. A week passed with no news from Aunt Louisa, Eliza, James, or even Leante. Life continued in its usual routine, with little contact from the outside world until one afternoon, Aunt Louisa paid them a visit. Sarah kept her company while Zanina prepared tea, and Eva read a novel to Hawk as he lay in bed. It was always difficult to convince him to retreat to his room when they had guests, but Eva had discovered the secret. Whenever he resisted, she would read him a book from his favorite library collection. Zanina had nearly stopped thinking about James until Aunt Louisa made her an unexpected proposal as she served tea. "Tomorrow I'll be visiting James on the island where he's stationed. I can't recall its name, it's rather peculiar, but that doesn't matter. A good friend of mine who works on the ships will accompany me. Josephine, would you like to come along?" Zanina hadn't heard the name Josephine in so long that she had nearly forgotten Aunt Louisa called her that. She didn't react at first. "Josephine, my dear, I'm talking to you," her aunt insisted. You're speaking to me, Aunt Louisa? I'm sorry, my mind was elsewhere. You'll be married soon, and you must always pay attention to your husband. Do you understand, Josephine? Yes. Well? Well, what? When will you finally come back down to earth, girl? I asked you a question. Yes, Aunt Louisa. Zanina had no choice but to accept the invitation. Aunt Louisa had already grown impatient and would not tolerate any objections. Moreover, she announced that she wouldn't inform James of their visit until she saw him in person. She had her reasons she wanted to keep an eye on his activities. And while she was at it, she hoped Zanina might meet new acquaintances, perhaps even a future husband since Mr. Biff was no longer an option. She had never intended for James to marry Zanina anyway. In Aunt Louisa's eyes, the one destined to marry James was Eva. A while later, deciding it was time to leave, Aunt Louisa turned to Zanina with a triumphant tone. I'll come to pick you up tomorrow with my coachman and carriage. Sarah walked her to the door, bidding her farewell. Louisa smiled and added, Give my regards to Eva. Then, with the help of the coachman, she climbed into her carriage and rode away. Zanina lingered by the window, watching the carriage disappear into the misty light. A strange feeling settled over her. Something felt off, though she couldn't quite place why. Shaking off the unease, she turned away and made her way upstairs. As soon as she stepped into the hallway, Eva was already waiting, shutting the door behind her with a quiet but deliberate motion. Her breath was unsteady as she reached for Zanina's arm and pulled her into their room. Come with me, she whispered urgently. Zanina frowned but followed without question, sensing the tension in her sister's voice. When they reached the dimly lit stairwell, Eva finally turned to face her. Something's wrong, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She then asked her confidentially, Do you remember the day I told you that Father hides money in his room? Yes, I remember. So, don't tell me again that we can spend it, because that's not happening. Zanina, listen to me. The money is gone. How can you be so sure? While reading one of Father's favorite books, I suddenly remembered that he had confided in me where he hid the money. When he fell asleep, I decided to check and make sure it was still there under his bed, inside a box, just as he had told me. I looked under the bed, found the box, but when I opened it, it was empty. Eva, that wasn't a wise thing to do. What if Father had woken up? You're right, but I had to check. If neither you nor I took the money, then who did? Mother? Zanina exclaimed, but then made Eva promise not to jump to conclusions before they uncovered the truth. Before long, their conversation shifted, and Zanina began describing in detail the long-anticipated excursion with Aunt Louisa. Eva was puzzled. Why didn't Aunt Louisa invite both of us to come along? You know very well, dear sister, that she can't tolerate both of us together. She gets irritated when she hears us laughing and playing, then complains that she has a headache. I see. In that case, I'd rather not go. I can't stand her constant grumbling. After a while, Zanina asked Eva to help her pack her bag for the trip, and her sister gladly agreed. When bedtime arrived, Eva thought it would be a good idea to check on their parents. She advised Zanina to get some rest so she would have enough energy for the trip the next day. Zanina thanked her sister for her help and agreed to lie down, but she couldn't fall asleep right away. Anxiety about the upcoming excursion kept her awake. She finally dozed off around 4 in the morning. Only to wake up at 6 to get dressed. Aunt Louisa was expected to pick her up at 8. Once dressed, she grabbed her bag and went down to the kitchen for tea while waiting. But 8 o'clock passed, and Aunt Louisa was nowhere to be seen. The eerie silence in the house made Zanina uneasy. Could something have happened to her on the way, she wondered. as her mind filled with all sorts of possible scenarios. A faint knock at the front door startled her. Overcome with relief, she rushed to open it only to find not Aunt Louisa, but her coachman instead. In brief sentences, he informed her that the trip had been cancelled because Aunt Louisa had fallen seriously ill. However, he reassured her that she would recover soon. Zanina thanked him for taking the trouble to inform her, then closed the door and trudged upstairs to her room, feeling utterly disheartened. She collapsed onto her bed and cried herself to sleep. She didn't rest for long, though Eva soon woke her. Noticing her red, swollen eyes, she insisted on knowing what had happened. Zanina struggled to explain, and Eva tried to comfort her, though she wasn't sure what had upset her sister more. Was it the reason the trip was cancelled, or the fact that she lost the chance to see James? Eva wondered and then asked, "Why don't you just admit that you have a soft spot for James? That you feel something more than friendship?" "Eva, I hope you're not suggesting that." "No, I don't feel anything for the man who tried to ruin our father's life. After everything that's happened, how can you even say that?" Zanina snapped, irritated, but Eva remained unfazed. "I know you won't like what I'm about to say, but James only tried to bring order to Father's unlawful affairs. Otherwise, we have no idea where he and his despicable associates would have ended up. They weren't his friends, they were." Zanina hesitated. "Never mind. Let's have this conversation some other time, Eva." With that, she lay back down, exhausted, nearly hitting her head against the headboard from sheer fatigue. "Then I suppose you wouldn't be interested in the fact that Aunt Louisa has already found a bride for James, and he's meeting her today." Zanina sat up in bed again, narrowing her eyes at Eva with a hint of sarcasm. "Are you implying that the bride is you?" she asked. "Of course not," Eva replied. "I made it clear to Aunt Louisa that my feelings for James are purely friendly, and nothing more. Besides, I thought you'd already made your stance clear you don't love him, and you don't care who he marries." Defending herself, Eva watched as Zanina fell silent for a moment before saying, "Fine, Eva. Would you be so kind as to leave me alone for a while?" "Yes, of course. But if you need anything, just call for me, and I'll be there. Like a fairy, I shall appear." "Eva, spare me the poetry, and please close the door on your way out." Eva felt sorry for Zanina, but since there was nothing she could do to comfort her at the moment, she left with the intention of helping when her sister was ready. Zanina, however, felt disheartened. Her entire world had shifted. She had convinced herself she felt nothing for James, yet the truth was far more complicated, reaching depths she could no longer ignore. Her heart felt unbearably heavy, and she sat up. A short while later, Eva returned, carrying a steaming cup of tea in her hands. "I thought a cup of tea might do you some good," she said kindly, handing it to her sister. Zanina accepted it with a quiet thank you, but only managed to take 2 small sips before setting it down. "I hope you didn't say anything to Mother or Father about how I'm feeling. Did they ask where I was?" "Mother was looking for you. She wanted you to run to the market and buy groceries. But I'll tell her you're unwell and I'll go in your place." "No, don't do that. Tell her I'll go." "But Zanina, you're not feeling well. And I already feel better. I'm sure the fresh air will help me return feeling renewed." Even Zanina didn't fully believe her own words, but she wouldn't let Eva change her mind. Eva, realizing there was no use arguing, simply sighed. "If you think you're strong enough to handle the reins and drive the carriage, I won't stop you. Do you want me to come with you?" "No, Eva. I'd like to be alone to think. Besides, you need to practice the piano. Please, Go tell Mother I'll be down in a moment." "All right, Zanina, as you wish." Eva relented and left her alone to get ready. Despite the dizziness threatening to overwhelm her, Zanina refused to succumb to melancholy. She dressed, hurried down the stairs into the sitting room without showing any sign of illness, took the money her mother handed her, bid everyone farewell, and headed to the stables to prepare the horse and carriage. Even in her weakened state, she managed to climb onto the carriage and set off. At the Central Market, she purchased everything on the list, though carrying the bundles to the carriage proved difficult. On the way home, her nausea worsened and she had to stop to be sick, emptying what little food remained in her stomach. When she spotted a freshwater spring, she gently tugged the reins to bring the horse to a stop, to rinse her face and take a drink. She also ate 2 apples in an attempt to regain some strength. After a brief rest, and once she felt a little steadier, she stroked the horse's mane gently, before climbing back into her seat and signaling for it to move. But as they traveled, the horse began to gallop nervously, making the sickness in her stomach unbearable once again. She had to stop a second time to be sick before continuing the journey. At last, she reached home, but instead of going inside, she went straight to the stable to unhitch the horse and freshen up, determined to erase any trace of her illness. Taking a deep breath, she finally stepped out of the stable and made her way back toward the house.